If someone to make $1 million in real estate, what would you recommend for them to do?
Do not immediately go into real estate investing. I think a lot of people think that that's where you make money. That's also where you can lose a significant amount of money. Brokerage is a no risk investment. Your time is what you're investing into creating relationships for people that are going to pay you to help them do a real estate transaction that you have nothing to do with. You don't have to buy the glue or the nuts or the bolts. There's no capital investment. And that's what's always set me free, because the risk is your time, but the reward can be endless.
I'm a realtor.
Okay. So
If someone to make $1 million,
this guy is saying, don't go into real estate investing because that's risky and it requires investment, both of money, and you have to buy bolts and nuts, and got to like get all involved in all these things, and it's this big mess. Instead, you should be a real estate agent, basically, is what he's talking about, or broker. Same deal. In some states, you have to be a broker in order to be an agent. In others, you just have to work under a broker and you can just be an agent. But anyway, he's basically saying you should sell real estate instead, because it doesn't really cost you anything. You're not having to put in $1 million into these properties. You're just getting a cut of those people buying and selling them. And so there's no risk. Now, what he's not really taken into consideration is that he is making a huge investment into all of these deals and into all these relationships, but it's just an investment of his time. All right. When you're a real estate investor, you're investing money, other people's money, hopefully. And you're doing that so that you can keep your time. And he's calling this risky. He's saying that that's risky. So don't immediately go into real estate investing. He probably would encourage people eventually to get into it or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, I'm just taking it as what he's saying in this video. It's risky to get into real estate investing, so don't consider that. Consider brokerage, because all it takes is your time. It doesn't take any money, and you make these relationships, and you can make a lot of money doing it. And that's all true. You can. But when you do make the money, you're a 1099. And so you're paying self-employment tax, which is 15% of all that you earn. And you're paying federal and state income tax. So you're paying a lot of tax on that money. And you're also you do have some expenses you can write off against it. You can like 100% depreciate a car if you buy that for real estate. But, you only make money if you're working. And if you're keeping up these relationships, and if you're meeting more people, and you're still going to go show people on weekends and nights properties, because that's when they have time off. And, now, granted, I'm not anti-real estate agent. I think people should be real estate agents. I think it's a good gig. And my wife's a real estate agent. I'm a broker. And so I'm not saying don't be a real estate agent. I just think that you should be a real estate agent because you want to be an investor. So you can go and look at your own properties. You can get access to the MLS, and you can analyze them, and you can sell your own properties. And when you buy properties, you're the agent, so you get paid to buy the property. Okay? And you're able to find better deals because you've got the inside track. So people are calling you, and people are like, hey, I hear that you invest in stuff, and would you be interested in this? Because you're a public person, because you're an agent. Now, I think that's the best scenario. Don't pit the two against each other. Use the two together in combination to supercharge your investing. And then if your things are going poorly on your investing side, you can kick up some deals maybe as an agent to find, or you can subsidize your properties with the income that you're making from your real estate sales and deals. So I don't really agree with him in the sense that he's not taking any risk, because it's just taking his time. Time is your most valuable asset. That's the thing you want to protect. He doesn't care about his time, apparently, and he thinks it's a better deal that he has to spend his time than he has to spend, rather than spending his money. I think it's better to spend your money, or preferably the bank's money, to save you time. And then you also let time work in your favor, because as the property gets older, it gets more valuable. So that would be my advice with that. If you're going to be a real estate investor, seriously consider getting your real estate license. Okay, seriously consider it. It's not all that difficult, and you'll end up, if you buy a couple deals a year, you'll end up making some money, and then you can take that money and you can put it into the deal if you want. So sometimes you can even write out your commission as just to take it as a credit, so that you're not paying taxes on it, and you just write out your commission, but you negotiate a $20,000 credit, cash credit on the purchase. So there's a lot of things to consider there. And if you got any questions, just drop them in the comments and I'll answer.
I'm a realtor. Of course I'll show you a house on Sunday evening instead of hanging out with my family. I'm a realtor. Of course I've almost been shot by a tenant after walking through an apartment. I'm a realtor. Of course one of my relatives bought a house with another agent. I'm a realtor. Of course I'll answer your call at 1 a.m. because you had a question about a house. I'm a realtor. Of course I've had to clean off the floors after walking through somebody else's listing. I'm a realtor. Of course I've had a phone call with a for sale by owner and they've told me how much they hate real estate agents. I'm a realtor. Of course I've stepped in dog shit in the backyard of somebody's house. I'm a realtor. Of course I've had to break in through a window because the keys never worked for the doorknob. I'm a realtor. Of course I've sent an inappropriate text message to my client that was meant for my wife. I'm a realtor. Of course I've been mauled by a dog because the seller forgot to put their pet away. I'm a realtor. So get a hold of me if you want to buy or sell a home.
So pretty funny. Anyway, that's all very accurate. Yes, this is, and this is why is it better to the previous guy's advice of, don't go into real estate investing right away, be an agent. Well, these are the kinds of things you do have to deal with if you're an agent. You have to have family members call who ask for your advice, but then buy a house with a different agent. And you're like, why would you not use me as your aid? What? This is weird. Or you'll have somebody call you late at night who wants to see a house at 9 o'clock at night. And you're like, well, I got to go do it, or somebody on the weekends, you got a birthday party you're supposed to go to, but this is the only time that your client can see you got to miss the birthday party and go to it. Now, it does provide you with a very flexible schedule, and it does allow you to do a lot of things and to live kind of a balanced life, because a lot of times people don't want to see houses, during the working hours. So maybe you're home with your kids, and so you get to see your kids a lot more, and you can go to events and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits for lifestyle that come with being a real estate agent. So it's a good gig, but this is just kind of a funny thing. All real estate agents would think is funny, because this is just the reality of doing it on a day-to-day basis.
If I was 18 and wanted to get into real estate, what are the first 3 steps?
That's a great question. That's a really great question. And I have seen this before, so I like this guy's answer a lot.
Would tell me to take?
I have a couple mentees, 18, that's in school right now, like graduating high school. The first thing I tell them to do is open a book and read. I always tell everybody, first thing you do, go read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it gives you a real perspective of life for one, and then the value of a dollar. With real estate.
Well, I read that book too. I loved that book. And I recommend it to people too. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It just gives you kind of a base understanding of things and puts things into a really good perspective. It's really well written. It's fun to read. It's easy to read. And it's a great story. And it does teach, kind of accounting principles, essentially. Very basic accounting principles. It's very useful, especially for real estate investing. So I recommend it. Read it.
Estate is really research. So that's what the re is in real estate. You have to do research. You have to be tapped into your environment, your markets. If you think you're going to come into real estate, get rich quick, don't do it, because you're going to waste your time and money. I tell people, look at the research, figure out what part of the real estate they want to do first, what areas they want to purchase in, and why. And then also I tell them, look at funding. So once you have a deal, you have to be able to fund that deal. So think about your sources of funding, how you're going to do it, what's your exit strategy. And the most important thing I always tell people is real estate money's made on the front end, not on the back end. So if the deal don't work today on the front end, it's not going to work on the back end.
Hey, my man. Yeah. Exactly what I've been saying, and we're doing the part of all this, we're doing the research part. That's what this channel's kind of main focus is. And so to do exactly what he's talking about, the money is made on the front end, not on the back end. You make your money off of the deal. You got to make a good deal up front, or you're just going to be underwater and it's going to suck the whole time and you're never going to make any money because you overpaid. So that's why it's so important to be very, very particular and to be nuanced and to really look at the details of these pro formas and the cash flows, because you want to get a deal. You want to get something that's going to make you money the second you buy it. Because anytime after that, when you sell it, it's going to be more valuable. Okay, this is the goal. We're not buying properties to impress people. Okay, we're not buying properties to look like we're rich. Okay, we're not buying properties to keep up with somebody else. We're not buying properties because they bring us, a certain social status. Okay, we're buying it for money purposes. We're buying it for investments to make money on them. So the way that you maximize that is you make sure that you're getting a phenomenal deal right up front. And that's why you do the research. That's why you do the reading. That's why you know where your locations you're looking at and all that kind of stuff, so that you can find the one that's perfect and that's going to boom. And when you find it, you move quick. You find one that's a deal, you're like, boom, take it, get it now. Okay, you don't lollygag around and sort of hem and haw. Oh gosh, I don't know, should I or shouldn't I? You take it, you get it, you know it, you act on it. And that's how it's done.
If you buy a property like this, it's really, really smart. Why?
Well, we got a fourplex here. I paid $825,000 for it. You get $2,000 a month.
You collected $8,000 a month. $8,000 a month is $96,000 a year. What do you think your property taxes are?
Probably about $7,800 a year.
Out of $96,000, we're going to take roughly 8 off of that. That brings you down to $88,000.
And then you got insurance is about $8,000 a year.
Now you're down to $80,000 a year. If he would have laid down the $800,000, he'd get 10% return on his money. You put money down, you got a loan.
Yep.
You only put down what?
$160,000.
And then your mortgage is
$48.25.
Go to bitmailer.com.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to look at, let's take a look at, so they're figuring out, if I can get to it. Okay. So his mortgage is $58,000 a year. So he's got $80K minus his 80K is his net income basically. And then $58K is his mortgage. So that leaves him with $22,000. So that's a 14% return on his, let me see. I can't remember what he paid. And his initial $57,000 cash investment that he put into it. So he bought it for $800,000. He put in $160,000 or whatever cash into it. It'd be 20% down. And then so what they're figuring out here is that it's this $22,000 after mortgage, which even still he's making money off of this mortgage too, because he's paying down principal. So a portion of that he's keeping, not a very big portion. I would assume that he's paying down principal. It's probably not an interest-only loan. I don't know what his financing is, but typically he would make maybe $12,000 a year off of that would go towards principal. So that would be his money as well. So let's say it's $12,000. Add that to his $22,000. So he's making $34,000. He's only getting $22,000 of it in cash, but his total earnings is $34,000. Okay, so $34,000. Let's figure this out. Sorry, you can't see my calculator anymore. I just think it's just not going to work in front of this. But so $34,000. You divide that by his $160,000 initial investment of cash. Now you're up to 21.5, a little over 21% return. Okay. And not only that, but he's going to get depreciation on this thing and appreciation. So we're at 34,000 right now. Okay. The 22,000 here plus the 12,000 he's making off of his mortgage. Okay, I just wanted you guys to see like how these numbers actually work in reality, like how much you're really making. Like the returns are so much better than what you can get anywhere else. And it's kind of fun. Real estate's also enjoyable to do, and it's fun. It comes with headaches, but it's also fun to be doing something that exists in the real world and not just be clicking numbers like in stocks and stock account or Bitcoin or whatever, where there's no physical element to it. It's all just digital. Okay, so we're at 34,000. All right. So, but let's say that this property appreciates 3% a year. Okay. So that's not anything extreme. 3%. That's $24,000. So now, plus his 30, so he gets all the appreciation on the whole property, even though, he's got a loan on it and everything, the property value, he gets to keep all that. Okay, does that make sense? So his property is going up by $24,000 in value every year. He's paying down $12,000 in principal, which is money that's his, and then he's getting $22,000 in cash. So $24,000 of appreciation, plus the $22,000 in cash flow, plus the $12,000 that he's making off of the principal pay down is $58,000. So now let's see what his return is. Now he's up at the 36% return off of his money. It's a great deal, right? This is you make money in multiple different phases of the property deal. Okay, so now he's a 36% return. And he put 20% down. If he could have financed the whole thing, he'd have an infinite return because he didn't put any money into it. So not only that, but he's also getting depreciation. Okay, so this is how depreciation works. You buy the property for $800,000 like this guy did. The government says, we're going to let you write off a portion of that every year against your income. So basically, it eliminates a portion of your income. So at $800,000, it's usually 27-year depreciation schedule. So $29,600 is the amount that he's able to take as depreciation. So basically, it would wipe out all of this. He wouldn't pay income tax on any of this money, and he'd still have $7,600 of depreciation left that he would then write off against this $12,000 he's making on principal. Okay. All right. Does that make sense? So if he's making $12,000 on his mortgage payment because it's going towards principal, not interest, the interest we deduct, but a portion of it's not all interest. So a portion of it's tax wise, it counts as income. So he's going to write $7,600 off of his $12,000. So that's going to leave him with like $4,400 of income. So he doesn't have to pay on the appreciation because he hasn't sold it yet, but he still has that for net worth and borrowing purposes that he could use it then to either refinance or borrow against that to buy something else. So he's saving, who knows, a couple $1,000s here in taxes too because of the appreciation. So let's just say he saves $2,000 in tax as well, on income tax and state income tax. I'm not sure. He maybe is in Florida, so he doesn't have state income tax. I'm not sure, but so let's figure that in there. So now he's up to $60,000 a year he's making on this property, essentially. I mean, so he's making 37%. And this guy's just a regular guy. He looks like a pretty normal dude. He's not doing anything crazy. He's bought an 8-plex or whatever he's got back there, and he's making a 37% return on his money. And if he would have put that $160,000 into S&P 500 or whatever, and let's say it does good and he makes 10% return, that's only $16,000. And with this, he's making $60,000. That's the power of leverage and the power of real estate and all the benefits that come along with it.
48.25.
Go to bitmailer.com and let's put you on a.
This is the strategy that people employ. They buy a property, you fix it up, you rent it out, and then you refinance it and say it's now worth $100,000 more than what you bought it for. You can get a loan for that exact amount, which you then use as a down payment on another property, rinse and repeat. Do I have that right?
So let's say the property goes from 1 to 1.1, they'll give you 70 to 80% of that. That extra $100,000, they give you $70,000 to $80,000 of that.
It's just that simple, folks. This is the strategy that people employ.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly, that's how it works. You know, so you get the property, you increase the value, then the bank, you can refinance. You might have to switch banks. Some banks don't like to cash out refi. It kind of depends. But yeah, if you cash out the property you bought, it was $1 million, now it's worth 1.1 million, so you have $100,000 in equity increase. You can borrow, let's say 70% of that, so it's $70,000. Obviously, it would increase your mortgage cost because you refinance. So now your mortgage is going to be higher on the property that you're refinancing, but you're getting $70,000 that you can then use to put a down payment on another property. And, you know, so that would be 70,000. That would be a $350,000 property you could buy with that money. Or even better, in my opinion, and this is what I do, I don't refinance. I use that property as collateral, and that equity as collateral to buy the other property. So my rate, my mortgage rate stays the same on the property that I'm using as collateral. And then they will use that equity that you have, that you've created, so that they don't have to refinance. They'll use that equity as collateral on another property. So you could buy you could buy the $350,000 property, and you would just have a loan of $350,000 on that property. So that property now has to pay for all of it. And that's why I do the 100% financing is a big deal for me, because I want to just borrow the full amount on that property, let it pay for itself. Okay, that's kind of the same thing as the cash out refi. It's a lot, I feel like it's more streamlined and it's a lot simpler. But it depends on your bank, you know, what they want and what they'll allow and what you can strong arm them into doing for you.